Welcome to the December 14th, 2020 Troy City Council meeting. I will officially call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
All present for our last meeting of 2020, and I think our sixth Monday in a row, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. Before we jump into proclamations and certificates of recognition and special presentations, there's a vote on a resolution to waive the rules of procedure for the City Council, Rule Number 8, proclamations and congratulatory certificates. I'll move that resolve that Troy City Council hereby waives the rules of procedure for the City Council, Rule Number 8, proclamations and congratulatory certificates, to approve and present a proclamation for City of Troy Employee Appreciation Day, December 18th, 2020, at the December 14th, 2020 City Council meeting. And this is a late submittal.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve the vote on resolution to waive the rules of procedure as just read into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll add that proclamation as C3. So first on the agenda is C1, the Independent Auditor's Communication. This will be presented by CFO Rob Malzik and Nate Balderman from Raymond. There's Rob. Oh, and there's Nate Balderman. Very good. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It is a pleasure to be with you here tonight as we go over our financial statements through fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. Tonight, we also have with us Nate Balderman from our auditing firm of Raymond Robson. We will speak to you tonight about 3 deliverables as follows. The Independent Auditor's Communication, which includes comments and recommendations, upcoming changes
This
in accounting
conference will
standards,
now be recorded.
and management representations. Secondly, we'll have Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR, which also includes Raymond's audit opinion. And thirdly, we'll have a slide presentation on the general fund, which includes revenues, expenditures, and fund balance. So I will now turn it over to Nate to discuss their audit and their findings.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time tonight. Tonight, I just wanted to go briefly over the results of the audit. Rob will go over the actual results and what's actually contained within the financial statements. I'm just going to focus on the actual results. I did want to inform you, because of how different things were this year, we did conduct the audit completely on a remote basis. So we didn't actually set foot at the city at all. It's the way we've been doing business since March. And our firm has taken the approach of trying to just make sure that we took every precaution necessary and kept everybody as safe as possible. So it was definitely challenging at times. It was a little different, but I want to thank the city for the cooperation in the matter. And all things considered, having a relatively smooth audit. So this year, the opinion that we're issuing on the financial statements is an unmodified or a clean opinion. It's what you're looking for in an audit. Basically, it states that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects, which speaks to materiality, but also is what you're looking for in an audit so that you can rely on the information that's contained in those reports. As a part of our audit, we do issue a separate, and it's at the very back of your CAFR if you're looking for it. The last 2 pages is our report on internal controls. That report is in accordance with government auditing standards. We look at internal controls as a part of our audit. It's only a part of our planning process and the procedures that we're performing. We're not giving an opinion on the internal controls. but it does give us, but we are required to report matters to you if they come to our attention. They're referred to as material weaknesses and significant deficiencies if they show up in this report. I'm happy to say we did not have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies reported this year, so there were no findings. In the separate letter on the communication with those charged with governance that Rob spoke of, that letter contains a couple of different attachments at the back. We did have one management letter comment related to the legal level of budgetary control. The state budget manual sets and gives guidance to municipalities on what the legal level of control is. And we're recommending the city review that budget manual to make sure that the level at which it's granted is the appropriate level. All the information is in your budget document. It really comes down to just reviewing and making sure that it's set at the appropriate level. So you have the right information there. It's just verifying that it's set at the right level. And then, but again, that doesn't raise to a level of significance where it made it into the other report. We also have in attachment B, there are the upcoming changes in standards. I do want to commend the city on moving forward with adopting GASB 84 on fiduciary activities. That's not on the list of upcoming standards because it was implemented in the current year. We've been talking about it, I think, for a number of years. There was an opportunity to delay implementation. They implemented a standard towards the beginning of the pandemic, where they extended the deadlines on implementing those standards, but the city decided to go ahead and implement that this year. So there are some changes in the reports that you will notice, some ways that the pension funds are disclosed. There's some disclosures related to those that changed, and some other small changes in the reports, but that did get implemented in the current year. But if you're looking at that report, you'll see there's several new standards that are still upcoming. So there really was nothing else I wanted to cover at this point. So I'll turn it back over to Rob.
Thank you, Nate. As it relates to the two items that he had mentioned and the budget, really it's going to be, we're going to update our resolution to match what the state recommends. So that's a very minor change, but it's a good point that Nate brought up. And then secondly, as it relates to the receivables that they passed on, the receivable went up a little bit in June. If you think about, it was the beginning of that pandemic and collecting receivables got a little tougher. And so what we're going to do not only is try to collect, obviously during the current year at a better pace, but at the end of the 60 days, we're going to defer any receivable that we haven't collected, and that will take care of that comment as well. So I just wanted to let council and the mayor know that we are addressing both those items. Okay, so Dave, if you could put the presentation on, I would appreciate it. And since we have had two special meetings in November, these slides and numbers should be very familiar to you. However, remember the budget is very forward-looking. Well, these numbers are basically a report card for fiscal 2020. We will take a look now at the general fund revenue, expenditures, and fund balance. If you turn to the next slide, Dave. General fund revenues. You've seen this slide before, and basically this is 10 years of data. And if you notice in 2019 and 2020, we finally have caught up to where we were in 2011. It's been a long climb back, but you can see that we're finally about there. One of the points I wanted to mention, though, in 2019 was higher than 2020 for revenues. We lost about $2 million, and that was due to COVID-19 pandemic. Interesting, you'll also note that this is the first time in 10 years that we did not make our budgeted revenues. Our actuals were actually lower than our budget, again, due to the pandemic. Next slide, please. So this slide breaks our revenues down further by source. charges for services was the main reason for not making our budget. Specifically, recreation and engineering revenues were impacted due to COVID-19 in the last quarter of our fiscal year. Also, I wanted to point out something interesting about investment earnings and how they are negatively impacted our general fund and our whole organization. If you see investment earnings there, it's just a blip on the screen, right? Well, I went back to 2008 and noticed that we had investment earnings for the whole organization of about $5.3 million that year. This year in 2020, we had $2.9 million. Interest rates based off the 10-year treasury are at all-time lows and continue to impact savers like ourselves. Again, these rates have impacted our revenues in a negative way. Next slide, Dave. This slide shows that we have 57% of our revenues coming in from property taxes. You're all well aware that's our main revenue source. And our two biggest areas after that are intergovernmental, which includes state shared revenues, charges for services, including recreation, parks, and engineering fees. I think we're going to move on to expenditures next. And this is something that we talked about quite a bit in November about how we always beat our actuals much lower than our budgeted. And if you see this is true in all 10 years. We were under in 2020 by $5.4 million. This can be credited to the whole team as we continue to scrutinize all expenditures and try to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. In recent council meetings, there's been a lot of talk about, quote, tone from the top. And I want to assure you that through Mark's leadership and the councils, we are on strong footing and we will continue to deliver value to the taxpayers. Next slide. This slide breaks down expenditures by function as seen in the CAFR. If you move left to right on some of the big ones, public safety was under by 1.5 million, primarily due to open positions in the police department. Public works was under by 1.6 million in personnel costs and supplies. This function's results are dependent on weather, which was favorable last year. Recreation and culture were favorable by 1.1, primarily due to the closing of the community center in the fourth quarter due to COVID-19. Next slide, Dave. Okay, this is just a graphical slide to show how we continue to stress public safety in this community and the importance it plays in our expenditures for the general fund. And again, that's at 57% for the year, and then you can see the other groups as well. Next slide, Dave. So now this slide is 10 years worth of data that includes all transfers in and out as well as revenues and expenditures and the difference in the impact on the fund balance. If you look at our expenditures were greater than our revenues this year for the first time in 4 years. The past several years have been very close, whether we have had a utilized fund balance or not. Next slide. This slide here, I would next year maybe rename it the Alan Huderick slide. This slide depicts the makeup of our fund balance and is critical in our bond rating with Standard & Poor's. This year, we ended with an unassigned fund balance of $17.5 million, which is 29.6% of general fund expenditures. This is within our target of 20 to 30%. I want you to notice that, however, if you look left to right on the dark graph for non-spendable, this is primarily for the general fund's advances for Sanctuary Lake Golf Course and the Aquatic Center. And as you can see, it has steadily climbed each year, and we will continue to do so until the debt on the golf course is paid off in fiscal 2028. And again, as we talked about in earlier November, that I see as a threat to our good standing and financial statements. Next slide. And again, very proud of this slide. I closed with this slide last year as well. And this is our Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This report is not required, but we continue to hold ourselves to the high standard that this award brings. We believe that we will receive this award in 2020 as well. One of the requirements in our CAFR, in our letter of transmittal, is to talk about acknowledgements. And each year we put those in there. But this year I thought it'd be more appropriate to give council a little background as to what we went through in this CAFR during a pandemic. This 202-page report is made up of thousands of numbers. Millions of dollars go through our financial system. And here are some of the things that went on behind the scenes. Anita Halperin from payroll. This year, when the police went to platoons with a 1 week on, 2 weeks off for COVID, Anita was instrumental in designing, tracking, and implementing the payroll. She had also been tasked with COVID leave reporting, including childcare and part-time banks. Lori Thayer, working with our auditors, like Nate had mentioned, in a remote fashion. This included fixed assets, investments, and Act 51 reporting, which is our road reporting. Shazia Fatima, she's been incredible with our grant reporting for COVID-19, which includes reviewing requirements, researching grant opportunities. I know the mayor's been in contact with the county constantly about the opportunities that we've had, and tracking tons of data in Excel and reporting all this out that will net the city around $4 million in fiscal 2021. Lisa Burnham's our controller, and she's in charge of all those areas, and everything that's been positive so far, she's been involved with and in charge of. Nino and his team have been working out in the field and in the office to maintain proper assessing records so we can get the revenue that we so desperately need. Our Treasury Department, led by Sandy and Renee, and the rest of the team have been in the office daily to receive and apply payments, cut checks, work with the banks, etc. Ellen stole my thunder last week about IT, but Gert's team, who's really supported us throughout the whole pandemic to make this all work, but also the people in person have been Dave, who's on tonight, Dave Mahalik, Bob Lux, and Stevie, have all been in person for council and all other board meetings. And lastly, I mentioned purchasing. Mary Beth and her team designing a virtual bidding process that will survive past this COVID crisis. I am humbled by the amount of extra work that this team has taken on. You won't see many of them, or if any of them, on hazard pay lists. They work really hard, and because you haven't heard much about them, they are doing their job and doing it at a high level. I'm humbled by this team and what we've accomplished this year. And now we'll take questions, Mayor, if you have any.
Thanks, Rob. And let me just jump off right there. You mentioned a lot of wonderful employees in your department who no doubt have worked very, very hard under extremely difficult and differing terms of a set of circumstances this year. And ironically, our C3 proclamation talks a little bit about that. But I want to make sure you also get the proper credit, Rob, because we know how hard you've worked in this past year and handled the situation. And, the team, obviously, you support them and they support you. And I appreciate how much information, how transparent you've been with us when we've asked questions a second and third time that maybe we have already asked before. But you continue to give us good, straightforward information and provide excellence in reporting and the transparency needed for our financials in the city of Troy. So thank you, Rob. Don't want it to go without you as well having the credit you deserve. That's not a question, but and thank you for that presentation. And Nate, also good to see you, and thank you for providing the information. And I'm glad to see everything's going as well as as always has. I'll open it up to questions for council. I know Councilmember Hamilton asked a bunch of good questions that are part of the public record online on our website now. But I saw your hand go up, David, so I'll go ahead and send it back over to you.
I just wanted to thank you, Rob, for answering all my questions now and throughout the previous budget sessions too. You've always been incredibly helpful, and basically want to share the sentiment you gave to your whole team that you've done a fantastic job in the most difficult of circumstances. And my take from reading this CAFR plus the interim financial report we got at the last council meeting that kind of showed our finances up to the end of September is that despite COVID, our city is in strong shape. We will have a lot of things to talk about in the upcoming budget sessions for the next few years to make sure we remain strong. And there will be a lot of things we need to discuss to do that regarding Sanctuary Lake and Aquatic Center and other things. But as a whole, and particularly compared to other municipalities throughout the state, we are in one of the strongest financial positions right now, and I'd like to keep it that way. So just thank you for everything you've done. All the questions I asked are kind of nerdy details on things, but the basic idea is that we're in strong position and we're looking into the potential things that down the road that we'll need to look at. But overall, we're doing great and keep Keep up the great work, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hamilton. Well said. Additional questions or comments? Well, I just, as a reminder, you talked about the Excellence in Financial Reporting Award. I think we forget because we haven't been in council chambers or in the boardroom in so long, but that whole wall is covered with all those awards we've received for our budgeting and for our financial reporting excellence. And I do expect that we'll continue to receive those, but I know that, again, Rob, you've taken us to the next level as well, keeping things, especially from where we were coming from. And really do appreciate all the hard work you've done. And City Manager Miller, I'll give you credit as well as the city manager for your leadership in that regard. But other than mentioning Councilmember Ellen AAA bond rating Hoderick, I don't have anything other comments on this tonight. And unless anybody else does, we appreciate it very much, Rob. And of course, all that CAFR information is on the web. Will be on the website. Everyone in the city has full access to it at all times. Councilmember Hamilton, do you have something else?
I just wanted to mention too that this CAFR only covers what's happening in our city up to the end of the fiscal year 2020, which ended June 30th, 2020. And since then, a lot of things have happened in the city, not just from COVID, but from a financial perspective. We've refinanced our DDA bonds. In the next fiscal year, we'll have paid off all our millage finance bonds. So we're going to see our city with a historic low level of debt coming up in this next year. And that's not even, we're already at a historically low level of debt just from this CAFR. But if you take that into account in the next year, I don't know if in my lifetime we've had this low level of debt in my lifetime living here. So as a percentage of the overall city budget. So I think there's a lot of good things to see from that front that aren't even reflected in this report.
City Manager Miller, and it's a good time to have that looked at, I think, right? Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councilman Hamilton mentioned, there's changes. I'd like Rob to sort of kind of inform council about his anticipation of coming at after the first of the year with some budget amendments to take into account for all those changes that are happening.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, we're right now, we're working with some of the main department heads to get a forecast of where they see the rest of the fiscal year 2021 ending up. So that would be recreation, that would be Kurt's areas, and that would also be engineering. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get that data. By that time, by the end of December, we should have hopefully the $4 million in the bank from the county and the state via the CARES Act. And then I'll be working with Mark and Bob. And what we'll be doing is we're going to bring to you a forecast and then also budget amendments for the revenue that we're receiving. And so what you'll see is approximately $4 million of revenue that we never budgeted. And that'll be hopefully the first meeting in January.
Fantastic. It's hard to believe we're almost halfway through this fiscal year already. Doesn't that seems strange to me? Maybe maybe not anybody else.
We get back from Christmas break and then we start right into the budget. So it's really strange. It's like I have 2 Super Bowls a year.
Very good. All right. Well,
thank you.
Nothing else from anybody. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Nate. Good to see you. Like I said, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll move on. Next up on the agenda is C3 is the late submittal proclamation for City of Troy Employee Appreciation Day, December 18th, 2020. And I would like to happily read this into the record. It's a proclamation for City of Troy Employee Appreciation Day, December 18th, 2020. Whereas the City of Troy employs hundreds of hardworking and dedicated employees who are working every day to make the City of Troy the best place to live, work, and play, learn and play. And whereas because of COVID-19, City of Troy employees at City Hall, Troy Police Department, Troy Fire Department, Department of Public Works, the Troy Public Library, and the Troy Recreation Department have adapted to new methods of completing their work and providing quality city services for the residents of the City of Troy. And whereas because of COVID-19, many of our City of Troy employees have been working remotely throughout the year with minimal access to our public buildings, and yet many of our first and frontline responders have continued to work in person because of the essential nature of public safety, infrastructure, and other essential components of our City of Troy government. And whereas in a typical year, the various City of Troy departments have holiday celebrations and luncheons, and the mayor and city council of the City of Troy are able to provide gift baskets and treats to the employees to show our appreciation. But because of COVID-19, those celebrations and shared treats are either not allowed or not recommended. And whereas the mayor and the city council of the City of Troy still want to show their appreciation for all City of Troy employees and let them know how much we value each and every one of them. Now, therefore be it resolved that the mayor and city council of the City of Troy do hereby proclaim December 18th, 2020, that's this Friday, as City of Troy Employee Appreciation Day in the City of Troy, and urge all citizens to join us in recognizing this day to celebrate our hardworking and dedicated staff. And be it further resolved that we look forward to our in-person holiday celebrations and the sharing of holiday treats again in 2021, as we are hopeful that a return to normalcy will occur. And be it further resolved that the mayor and the city council request that city manager Mark Miller and city attorney Lori Grigg Bloom share this proclamation with all of the dedicated City of Troy employees so that each and every one of them know how much the mayor and city council truly appreciates all of their hard work this year. This proclamation was presented this 14th day of December 2020, and we look forward to celebrating you on Friday the 18th. All City of Troy employees, we wish that we could give you all treats and do the things we normally do, but because of COVID-19 and because of the differences of this year, we're not able to do that. But we do want you to know how much we care and how appreciative we are. And Mayor Pro Tem Brooks and I had been talking earlier over the past week and about how we could provide treats to everybody, but we really realized that she's a doctor, so she knows that it's really not advisable to put out a joint gift basket for the employees that are working together and have a shared space. And so that frustrated us a little bit, but we wanted to do this proclamation as a council to really recognize you. And CFO Malzek had talked a little bit just a few minutes ago about all the innovative ways his staff and finance had worked so hard to do the job they needed to do throughout COVID-19. And each department had stories just like that. So we really do appreciate all of you. And we ask that the residents of the City of Troy join us in celebrating and appreciating the employees who work so hard to provide the quality service to all of our residents. And I do it every day anyway, but especially this Friday, the 18th, we'll be appreciating extra hard. So thank you. Okay. That concludes our certificates of recognition and special presentations. There are no carryover items. There are no public hearings this evening. We move on to public comment. As a reminder, so long as we're meeting virtually, public comment can be submitted via email to publiccomment@troymi.gov or via voicemail to 248-524-3302. And I will turn it over to City Clerk Dixon for any public comment this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. We did not have any public comment submitted today for the meeting.
Okay, well, if there had been, we would have heard it into the record right now. So appreciate the public who takes the time to comment. So being that there was no public comment, there's no need for city council or city administration reply. There are no postponed items this evening, so we'll move on to regular business. First up is I-1, board and committee appointments. I have a couple mayoral appointments this evening. First up, I'd like to appoint Arjun Tholikapalli to the Global Troy Advisory Committee as a student representative for the term that expires July 31st, 2021.
Support.
I don't know who that was. I think it was Ann. Okay, moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Ann Erickson-Galt. The mayor appoints Arjun Tholikapalli as a student representative to the Global Troy Advisory Committee for the term expiring July 31st, 2021. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson-Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes. Motion carries, and we thank Arjun for continuing to serve as a student representative. Next up, I'd like to appoint to the Planning Commission Jayalakshmi Malalahali, Gerald Jerry Rauch, and Carlton Faison, all for the terms expiring December 31st, 2023.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks. The mayor appoints the Planning Commission Jayalakshmi Malalahali, Gerald Jerry Rao, Carlton Faison for the terms expiring December 31st, 2023. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Motion carries, and we thank those three for serving on that very important commission, the Planning Commission. That concludes mayoral appointments this evening. We do have one city council appointment. I'll hand it over to Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to appoint Alankar Shendi to the Traffic Committee as a student representative for term ending 7/30/2021.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, supported by Councilmember Hamilton. The City Council appoints Alankar Shendi as a student representative to the Traffic Committee for the term expiring July 31st, 2021. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yeah.
Motion carries, and we thank Alankar for agreeing to serve as the student representative. Yeah. That concludes board and committee appointments this evening. Next up is I2, board and committee nominations. Mayoral nominations are first, and I would like to nominate the Global Troy Advisory Committee for the unexpired term expiring October 30th, 2022, Caitlin Howe.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Krienga, that we nominate to the unexpired term expiring October 30th, 2022, to the Global Troy Advisory Committee, Caitlin Howe. Any discussion? I just want to add that Caitlin has been a student representative in the past, and she's 18 now and a registered voter and resident of the city of Troy, and she's very excited to be able to serve in an official capacity on Global Troy and share the knowledge she's gained over the past several years as a student representative and now actually be able to vote on matters and have an official say. So the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga.
Yes.
Motion carries. I have no further nominations this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, I don't believe you have any city council nominations this evening?
Not this evening.
Very good. All right, that concludes I2. Next up on the agenda is I3. We do have a request for closed session this evening. I'll move the resolution resolved that the Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268E, pending litigation. United States of America versus City of Troy, and Adam versus City of Troy, and Barnwell versus City of Troy.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I3, the request for closed session, as read into the record. Is there any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Motion carries. We will have our closed session at the end of the agenda as part of the agenda packet. Next up is I4, a budget amendment and standard purchasing resolution 2, award to sole bidder, meeting specifications, flooring replacement at 52-4 District Court in courtrooms B, C, and D, and the Troy Community Center and banquet rooms, preschool rooms, kids corner, and senior dining room, perhaps the longest title I've seen as my time as mayor. And it will be introduced by Director of Public Works, Kurt Bovenseed, who has popped into our screen. Hi, Kurt.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and good evening. As Mayor indicated, before you is a contract to replace flooring in 2 of the city facilities. As a reminder, the 52nd 4th District Court is a city-owned building that we lease out to the county for their court operations, and we are obligated to maintain that building in good standing. And the carpeting was identified in the facilities condition report only because it created a hazard. It began uplifting and it created a trip hazard. Normally, the facility condition assessment report did not give an opinion on finishes. And then the Troy Community Center, there's several areas in the Troy Community Center being proposed to be refloored as well. Both the 52nd 4th District Court and the portion of the Community Center were budgeted in the 2020 fiscal year, but unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we were unable to complete those. However, it did provide good opportunity to combine all the flooring into one bid proposal, which we believe yielded a very, very good result from a qualified company. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Any questions from council before we move a resolution? All right. I see no questions. Anybody like to move the resolution? Councilmember Erickson Galt, was that you? Or is that a different hand wave? Okay.
That was me. Thank you, Mayor. I'll read that very long resolution. I would like to move I-4 Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, award to sole bidder meeting specifications, flooring replacement at 52-4 District Court in courtrooms B, C, and D, and the Troy Community Center in banquet rooms, preschool rooms, kids corner, and senior dining room as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve I-4, the Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, as just read into the record and printed the agenda packet. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Kurt. Next on the agenda is also Kurt. Standard Purchasing Resolution 5, under I-5, the approval to expend budgeted funds for trails and pathway at Jaycee Park. Public Works Director Kurt Bovenstein, please take it away.
Thank you again. And if we could bring up the presentation, please. As the presentation is being brought up, it was an exciting time a couple weeks ago when we announced the unofficial opening of Phase 2 of Sylvan Glen Lake Park, although we're very excited to host a official grand opening with a ribbon cutting next spring. Already Phase 2 is getting a lot of use. So we're excited to announce the beginning stages of Phase 3, and I believe I was asked by a reporter recently how many phases, and I said infinity. We don't really have a stop to this. We want to keep going, and I think that's evident in all of our surveys that we put out, and then of course council support in appropriating the funds to continue these phases. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, our first phase, which goes by Daisy Nike Dog Park, and just a reminder to council, the Daisy Nike Dog Park was an award-winning partnership that we won Project of the Year through the American Public Works Association, because this park was developed by with a public-private partnership, and then essentially putting the trail through it, which gets use daily. I drive by it every day and I see someone on it. This trail does connect the park, the Civic Center, and eventually to the museum. Next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned, Phase 2, Sylvan Glen Lake Park, recently opened, and it continues to get use daily. I think residents are most excited that we're going to begin maintaining these trails in the wintertime, of course, after all of our major road obligations are done. But we did restructure some of the employees here at Department of Public Works to be able to react to the snow on the trail a bit faster, so people can enjoy that passive recreation through the winter months. Next slide, please. So as we look at the moving forward with our phases of trails, we're looking at areas where we connect residents to recreation opportunities. I apologize if that's screen, if the slide is a little zoomed in, but the Jaycee Park presents just that. We have several neighborhoods to the north, and a couple of them are newly constructed. We have 3 phases of oak forest that don't have direct access to an abutting park because of the Renshaw drain. Additionally, there's a lot of green space, natural area on the north side of Jaycee Park that doesn't get a whole lot of foot traffic because there's no official trail that goes through it. So we saw this as an opportunity to, again, highlight our natural features in the city of Troy, and then provide that pedestrian crossing through a bridge to Jaycee Park to open that use up to the residents to the north. I really like this project. We haven't done a whole lot on the east side except for John R., where we took the 10-foot pathway up John R., asphalt pathway. So this will really give some of the east side residents an opportunity to benefit from the Trails and Pathway program as well. So our first stage is to start designing this. And next slide, please. So we're requesting to expend capital funds. We did not spend all the capital funds on Sylvan Glen, so we still have some capital funds left for the Trails and Pathways program. So we're requesting to use some of those funds to begin designing this phase of the trail. We expect the design to go relatively quickly, and we have a spring letting, so we would bid this out and allow vendors to bid on this in the spring. The only hiccup to this is we're not sure of exactly the wetlands that we'll have to cross, or if any. We know that the pedestrian bridge is going to cause some additional permitting, but we're not sure about wetlands, and we experienced a delay in the Eagle permitting process through phase 2 at Sylvan Glen because of COVID. So hopefully the state of Michigan is caught up, and this project could start construction as early as summer of next year with a late summer, early fall completion. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Are you telling me I might get to do 2 trail ribbon cuttings next year, spring and fall? I mean, that's so exciting. You can come back to the meetings every week, Kurt. That's fine. This is great. Before we, any questions specifically before we get into a discussion format with the resolution? Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. Being new to council and new to this initiative, the Troy Trails, which I'm a big supporter of, is if Director Bovensteed could just remind me about the vision in terms of interconnectivity between the different segments. Is that through existing sidewalks, or is that a vision down the road to promote that and work on that?
It's a great question.
Certainly. Thank you for the opportunity. So our original, when we first started this back in 2016, when we resurrected the Trails and Pathways idea, we looked for a final connection to the Clinton River Trail. I think ultimately that is our goal, to be able to connect to a regional trail system to continue to highlight Troy. But for now, what we're looking for is areas where we can have passive recreation and highlighting Troy's natural areas. There is connection opportunities through major road sidewalks, and people can find their way. We do have a map now at the Recreations website that highlights each trail, and also on the city's website, there's also a map that highlights the bike routes in the city, and you can find connections. One of our avid trail people here in the city of Troy has already sent me his run map showing different ways to connect both phase 1 and phase 2, which I thought was really neat. So ultimately, I think our goal is to eventually connect these somehow, some way. Unfortunately, we lack that abandoned rail right-of-way to go through the city. So I think at some point we are going to have to use major roads to connect all these trail segments together.
Thank you, Kurt. I think we're blessed with hundreds of miles of sidewalks already, which is great because it does provide the interconnectivity, but it does make it more difficult to build new trails when there's already so many opportunities to get around. But that's a good question, Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga, and we've we've gone through, Kurt has gone through a lot over the years with neighborhoods and trying to figure out what works. And I think that we're on a good path, no pun intended. No, maybe pun intended, for how to handle this and to work forward. And so thank you for that question, though. Councilmember Hamilton?
So, Kurt, this is just an idea that just popped in my head, and I just want to throw it out there and see what you think of it. But I know that the widening and reconstruction of Rochester Road is happening soon, right, from Barclay to Trinway. And that Rochester Road, of course, is the major road between segments 2 and 3. Is there it's probably too late in the engineering process, I would think, but there's any way we could take advantage of that to maybe add, we kind of have the Waddles crossing with the phase 1 trail, which kind of has an island in the middle, and the new Rochester Road construction will add a median in the middle. So I don't know what we could do to make the connection more pedestrian friendly, but have you thought about that? Do you have any thoughts about that? Is that feasible? When is the main crux of that construction going to happen? And by the way, I know it's coming up soon, but do you have any thoughts on that to take advantage of that to connect phase 2 and 3?
Absolutely. There is opportunity. It is a federal project, so there might be what we call some forced accounts where the city would have to pay for those types of improvements to the project. But we're going to be entering the right-of-way phase, so we haven't fully designed the project as it stands today. Construction isn't scheduled until 2024, so there's plenty of opportunity. And City Engineer Hootery communicates a lot with me, and we brainstorm on different ideas when we do these road projects on how to make sure that we're connecting those pedestrians to the trail and pathways.
Right, yeah, Rochester would definitely be a much more high traffic than Waddles in that area. So I don't know pedestrian bridge or what the options are, but I'm excited to see. I'm glad you guys are already thinking about that, because I don't know how we would do that, but it seems like a great opportunity. So good to hear that.
Any other questions at this point? Someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move I-5, Standard Purchasing Resolution 5, approval to expend budgeted funds, trails, and pathways to Jaycee Park as printed in the council packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve I-5 Standard Purchasing Resolution 5, approval to expend budgeted funds, trails and pathway Jaycee Park as printed in the agenda. Any discussion? I think we kind of covered it with our questions that turn into statements too. Councilmember Hoderick?
I just wanted to comment about how exciting this really is. And it for residents who maybe are just catching up with this topic with us, these ideas and plans aren't coming out of left field. They're we've had input from our Parks and Rec team, from Green Space. There's been a whole surveys that have guided us and told us that this is what the community wants. Sometimes people bring up about seeking grants that can help us fund these activities. We valiantly attempted that. I think it was back in 2016, right? Is it the time frame? I think a few of us slogged through that process, and there were so many limitations that and demands that we couldn't meet. And I guess I just want to comment, this is another opportunity to applaud Kurt, staff, everyone that gets creative to help us look at what we have, the infrastructures we have, the green spaces we have, the places to enjoy, as Kurt says, passively, and just leverage them. It's just it's an added bonus to an amazing infrastructure we have here in the city. And I know we keep setting the tone, go for it, get creative, look, keep bringing the ideas to us. And thank you for doing that. And you've been consistent with that over the years. And, residents are always talking about protect our green space. Well, it's not only protecting it, but actually being able to access it and enjoy it and get in it. And you're helping us do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hoderick. Any other comments or discussion? I just wanted to add that, I mean, these trails and pathways predate all of us on council as a priority for the city. And, you know, former mayor used to talk about how prior to the Great Recession, they'd put away money each year for a trails and pathway system. But then when the recession came, they had to use those funds for essential services. So this is something that our city's been looking for a long, long time. It was in surveys back then. Our surveys now, most recent, show an even further increase in support. So it's great to finally be able to have some of these phases. I mean, phase 3 sounds like a lot already in a sense compared to when we just had segment 1 for so long. So again, thank you, Kurt, for continuing to make this a priority in your ways to be creative. And I know that you've got a lot of help doing that as well. But this is very, very exciting for sure. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is I6, Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, Cooperative Purchasing Contract, Historic Village General Store, Poppleton School, and Troy Town Hall roof replacements. This will also be introduced by Public Works Director Kurt Bovenstein. Welcome back, Kurt.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. Before you can see a continued investment in the Troy Historic Village. I would love to be able to announce that the Niles Barnard House is complete and ready for tours. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic has delayed that. We are looking to do a walkthrough punch list this week, so hopefully soon we'll be able to announce that the Niles Barnard House is officially complete, and then once safe, we can open that up for tours and have council do a walkthrough or ribbon cutting on that grand opening as well. But before you tonight is an investment in the cedar roofs at several of the buildings at the Troy Historic Village. I don't like always coming for budget amendments. However, these particular construction projects were budgeted in January of 2020, pre-pandemic. And I'm glad to say that Dennis Trantham did an excellent job in forecasting how much this project was going to cost. Unfortunately, did not cover the contingency cost. And as we know, with anything with historic buildings, once we start working on them, we always find something that is unforeseen. So we'd like to have that contingency so there's no delay in the contractor finishing the job. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Any questions on I6? Councilmember Abraham, did you want to move the resolution? You unmuted. I thought that maybe that was your signal.
It could be. Sure. I'll move I6. I'll move I6, Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, Cooperative Purchasing Contract, Historic Village General Store, Poppleton School, and Troy Town Hall roof replacements as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we approve I6, Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, Cooperative Purchasing Contract, Historic Village General Store, Poppleton School, and Troy Town Hall roof replacements as printed in the agenda. Any discussion? Okay, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Gall,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Kurt. Next on the agenda is I7, Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, Award to Sole Bidder Meeting Specifications, and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, Cooperative Purchasing Contract, U.S. Communities / OMNIA Public Address System Library. This will be introduced by Interim Library Director Phil Quick. Hey, Philip.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members, and for having me tonight. The library public address system, it was first installed in 1988. As you know, technology has changed a lot since then. The library floor plan has changed a lot since then. The system has been repaired many times. It's beyond repair. it's no longer functioning. There's parts of the building that don't get sound. The sound cuts in and out, and it just needs to be replaced. The system is not only used for routine announcements, opening and closing announcements, but used in case of emergencies and inclement weather and things like that. So it's vital for a public building to have a good public address system. This project was originally budgeted in spring of 2019, and as the DPW director mentioned earlier on one of his projects, a lot has changed. So we need a small budget amendment of $8,000 to proceed with the project. The hardware was purchased from, or will be purchased from, a cooperative list from Gray Bar, and the installation of the hardware went out to bid and will be installed by Sound Communication Systems. So again, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you, Phil. Any questions? Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. Phil, just wondering how long it will take for installation, or, I'm hoping that this can be installed when the library can open its doors, whenever that fine day may be.
The installation will only take about 2 to 3 weeks. So we anticipate if it's approved tonight, that we would be able to purchase the hardware by the end of the year and then install it in January, in time for any kind of public opening, I assume.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions? Councilmember Hamilton.
I just want to say, Phil, this is the first time I've seen you since you've become interim library director. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for taking on that role on short notice. I know we got a lot to do with the library in the next year, and I really appreciate you taking over that role, and it's great to see you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It'll be a challenge.
Anybody else? Councilmember Erickson Gall.
Got to unmute. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move I-7 Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, Award to Sole Bidder Meeting Specifications, and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, Cooperative Purchasing Contract, U.S. Communities, OMNIA Public Address System Library, as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve I-7 Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, Award to Sole Bidder Meeting Specifications, and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, Cooperative Purchasing Contract, U.S. Communities / OMNIA Public Address System Library, as printed in the agenda. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Phil. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. Stay safe.
You too. All right, that concludes regular business this evening. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda this evening? Anybody? Councilmember Abraham.
I'll move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved. There are no memorandums and future council agenda items this evening. No further public comment, no council referrals, so we'll move on to reports. Does anybody have any comments on the reports this evening? You don't have to, Councilmember Hamilton, but if you'd like to.
I was making a quick mention of O2E and that Precinct 5 of Troy was selected as part of the post-election audit process in the state. And it's just another opportunity to thank Clerk Dixon for her and her team's hard work this year. And this will just still audit the precinct to see how it compares with the election and absentee results. And it's part of the process to ensure the integrity of our elections. And Troy is going to be a part of that statewide. So it's good to see.
Very good. Yes, thank you. I knew you'd get one more election city clerk plug in before the end of the year. Any other comments? I wanted to just mention O2A. I know Assistant City Manager Bruner's listening, but the Cobalt survey looks good. Looking forward to getting that out in the hands of the public and getting some great responses and the opportunity for us to really delve into all that. So thank you, Bob, for working so hard, and everyone who's participated in that process as well. Are there any other comments on the reports this evening? All right, we'll move on to council comments. How about council comments? Councilmember Erickson Gold.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that the public is aware. Announcement just went out, I believe, today about the applications beginning tomorrow for small business assistance programs. This is the Pure Michigan Small Business Relief Initiative. The idea is to have some support and relief for our small businesses who've been suffering and continue to suffer with all of the COVID, very necessary shutdowns, but very impactful for in a negative way for our small businesses. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of this program. I believe that the information is available on our website, perhaps, or definitely available through the county. And then there's another opportunity for restaurant relief through Oakland County. And that information is posted on the county's website at ogov.com/COVID. And to provide some relief again to restaurants that have been especially hard hit during this crisis. So just want to highlight those two programs.
Thank you, Ann. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of things that I wanted to say. I also was going to mention the Pure Michigan Small Business Relief Initiative that Councilmember Erickson Galt was discussing just a second ago. The applications are promptly at 9 a.m. online, so definitely it'd be great for small businesses that are hurting to apply for that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that Global Troy is hosting a virtual celebration of winter holiday traditions from around the world. And that will be this Thursday, December 17th at 7 p.m. And then the last thing that I just wanted to mention was that it is very exciting that the vaccines for COVID have gone out yesterday and have been administered today. I think we're the first administration of the vaccines in the United States, which is very exciting. However, at the same time, hospitalizations, infection rates, and death rate is actually on the rise right now. And so it is still important for everybody during this holiday season to really continue to take precautions, avoid social gatherings, safe social distances, wear your mask, all the things that we've been doing to keep us safe, because it will be a couple months until the general public has access to these vaccinations and until we're able to actually see the result and the benefit of the vaccination. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we just have to really keep safe for the next few months.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brooks. Councilmember Chamberlain-Carranga.
Thank you, Mayor. I was also going to mention the Global Troy Advisory Committee, that a great initiative that they put together for the first time to celebrate, again, the great diversity in our community. And we had the honor to share one in our family, a special Romanian tradition that we take part in at the holidays. So encourage everyone to tune in on Thursday at 7 p.m. for that on the city's YouTube and various social media channels. And again, thank you to Global Troy for being this light to celebrate our amazing diversity in the community. And the second thing, I meant to raise my hand during reports and just wanted to highlight a number of reports around the Troy Historic Village and just wanted to celebrate them as well for all that they have done during this difficult time of the pandemic, and especially choosing to stay open. I was there with my son for, as I call it, Safe Santa with social distancing, Santa, Coco and Crass with Santa on Saturday, and spoke with some staff members. And they said that other various nonprofits similar to them have basically shuttered their doors during COVID, but they made the decision to stay open and to find ways to adapt to COVID and still remain this light and to run programs in the community. And so I thank them for doing that and for all the ways that, as you see in the reports, they've sought to find various sources of funding, including from my own organization that provided special COVID funding for its current grantees, and the Historic Village is one of those. So was just proud to see that and to see how they've been impacted by COVID, looking at their financials. So just thank you to them and to our community for supporting them, as well as the Nature Center and other nonprofits during this difficult time. And to also point out, they were able to get payroll protection funding through the CARES Act, which I think also is quite special, and I was glad to hear that. So happy holidays to everyone and wishing you all the best. Stay safe and be well.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain Craig. Councilmember Hoderick.
I just wanted to call everybody's attention to the fire department's social media, and they had a post that I'm embarrassed to admit how many times I've watched it. I just think it's so incredibly creatively done. You talk about the year of the pivot. Every year they have participated in the Royal Oak Beaumont Moonbeams for Sweet Dreams for the children that are in the hospital there, to make sure that they know they are not forgotten and during the holiday season. And they go and they take a truck and they do lights. And so this year Beaumont, because we can't do that, asked for videos, and the video is just so incredibly well done. And just two things. I wanted to draw attention to the fact that they do have a social media page, and there are a lot of great tips and things that they remind us to consider in terms of the safety of our homes. But they do some very creative things along the way, and this is one of the beautiful ones. So I wanted to make sure folks see that. And, as others have said, happy holidays. Look forward to seeing everyone virtually in the new year. And please stay safe. Thank you, Dr. Brooks, for the additional information. And just, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we are still in the tunnel and going through it. So Zoom's Giving 2020 happened, and I think Zoomsmas is going to happen for the Hodericks. Please stay safe.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoderick. Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. Usually in December, in addition to wishing everyone a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, happy Kwanzaa, and thankfully Happy New Year, can't come soon enough. And I remind folks about drinking and driving and making sure that the holidays stay merry and bright and not tragic. And while I still want that to be true, of course, everyone should be very mindful of that. I think there is an even bigger concern this year, because it has been one that has been so socially distant, is that there are a lot of people that deal with depression during the holidays. And this year, probably more so than ever. So just want to hope that everyone reaches out to family and friends that they may not have talked to much during the year. Make sure that they are doing well. It's unbelievable what that small interaction can do to someone who is struggling. And while we may all have our daily struggles, there are some that truly and clinically are struggling. And every kind word, every remembrance can truly make a difference. So I'm hoping everyone can do this as part of their holiday celebration, reaching out, and I know I will be doing that as well. And the last comment that I would like to make, just end of year, it's been a crazy year. I want to thank the residents of Troy for getting through every difficulty with grace. Not every city across the United States has had the calmness that we saw here in Troy, despite a very unprecedented, a very tumultuous year. So really want to thank the residents for that. Want to thank them for passing the millage for the Troy Public Library. You've done a great service to your community and one that will pay off in dividends over the next 10 years. I'd also like to thank city staff for making a nearly seamless pivot to supporting our residents pretty much virtually for the past 9 months. It's unbelievable what you've been able to accomplish. And then I'd also like to thank my council colleagues for a really cohesive year. We've had a tough year. We don't always agree, but we always get along, and it's wonderful to be able to collaborate with you. So I look forward to what we can do in 2021. As Dr. Brooks said, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that's something that I know I'm clinging to, is that hope, because it's been an awful year. So 2021, we're ready for you.
Thank you, Councilmember Abraham. Nicely put. Mayor, Councilman Hamilton, I saw you raised your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. I share the sentiment of Councilmember Abraham and Dr. Brooks and everyone else. It's been a tough year for a lot of us and a lot of us in our personal life, and just happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everyone. This is our last council meeting of the year. It's our last council meeting in 4 weeks. I'm hoping in 4 weeks when we reconvene, things are looking a little more positive with COVID and the vaccine starting to take effect, and I'm looking forward to it. So my comment, I'll focus on what I'm looking forward to in 2021. And there's a lot of exciting things we're going to be working on here in council, from redoing our master plan and working closely with residents to do that, to make sure development in our city is aligned with our residents. From the expansion of the library funding so we can open a 7-day library with, as we voted on earlier, a new intercom system that isn't almost as old as me. But just really all the things we voted on today, I really thought a lot about the historic village, the library, ribbon cutting for the trails, flooring in the community center. And I remember going to community center for events and to work out. And we have so much to look forward to in this next year. It's so worth it to just hang tight. My family's we're just celebrating Christmas in our household, and maybe we'll Zoom with a few family members, but it'd be so worth it to just hold out a few more months till we're all vaccinated and safe and can be together again. And I'm really looking forward to it. I really miss seeing all the council members and city staff in person too. It's really, I think Councilmember Hoderick told me earlier today she got to see Mayor Baker at a event earlier this year, and she didn't realize how much she missed seeing him in person. So we're looking at, yeah. But no, I agree.
I find that hard to believe.
But we have so much more to look forward to. We're going to work on city ethics reform, and just expansion of the Trails and Pathway program. So it's going to be a really exciting year next year. I hope to see things economically and with everyone to take off again. And I'm really looking forward to next year. So happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. I appreciate it. And I several of you have said several things that I would have said. I do quickly just again want to touch on the Global Troy holiday celebrations or traditions from around the world. It'll be streamed at 7:00 on Thursday, the 17th, and it'll be packaged on the YouTube to see after as well. But I really want to thank Global Troy and a couple key members who took that on their own initiative as part of the Global Troy. At the last Global Troy meeting, said they wanted to do it, and it made it happen. And I participated in a little bit, and looking forward to having that shown to the community on Thursday evening. I think it's a really special thing that shows how wonderfully and richly diverse our community is, and really proud of them for that. I'm very thankful. And Councilmember Hamilton, you mentioned Councilmember Hoderick seeing me. If you would have told me last year at this meeting that I would be standing 6 feet away from Ellen Hoderick with a mask on outside at a grand drive-in menorah lighting with 300 cars honking their horns at us, I would have told you you're crazy. And yet that is where I found myself with Councilmember Hoderick the other night. And it really an impactful, touching thing to experience. I got to light the Shamash candle, which is the center, the giver, the servant candle, and Ellen was the torch passer. And I really thank the Chabad Jewish Center of Troy for inviting me, and for Ellen, of course. And it was really special out on Technology Drive, and all these cars, all these people really, tonight's the 5th night of Hanukkah. But to see just that community event in that setting was really wonderful, and I was thankful to be part of that for sure. I can't do a year in review tonight. I appreciate the things that other people have mentioned in the year moving forward. I think that we've had a busy year. We'll have a busy year next year. It's going to be, for all the troubles of 2020, I think this council and city administration, city staff have done a really good job of making sure the needs of our city have been addressed, and our residents' concerns have been listened to. And we'll always work at that, and we'll continue to do that in 2021. But I do want to thank again city administration and city staff for what has been a year like none of them ever expected. And I'm sure when Mark got appointed a couple years ago, wouldn't have expected that he would have to be city manager in a pandemic. And just everybody, and Aileen, with your elections and all of the work you've done with that. I mean, that we kind of, seems like it's in the past now, right? But I mean, that really was a huge undertaking, everything you've done. So 2021 will be a different year no matter what. We're hoping it's going to be a better year. It looks like things will be better in 2021. There was good that happened in 2022 though, and a lot of that is here with this council, the people that I've worked with. And so I do appreciate each and every one of you. And if you think about all the good that our residents have done this year, whether early on when they were making masks when you couldn't buy one, couldn't find one anywhere, we had groups of people hand making masks and delivering them out there. All of the food and beverages that were donated to our first and frontline responders by local residents or restaurants and businesses. I mean, there's a lot of good-hearted people in our community, and that makes me very honored and thankful to be your mayor. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody. We will look forward to 2021 and all the exciting things Councilmember Hamilton just mentioned. And I do hope in 2021 we get together in person for a meeting at some point, because it would be nice to see someone other than just Ellen. But even though that was nice. So one last thing I want to say also is Community Affairs Director Cindy Stewart is a very hard worker for the city. And for any of you who follow me on social media, you see a lot of pictures of me, whether it's cutting a ribbon or talking to somebody. And Cindy is always there out in the community with me at a lot of those events at a safe distance, of course. And I would be remiss not to thank her for all the hard work she's done this year on my behalf, just alone, let alone what her regular job responsibilities are. So thank you, Cindy. Appreciate you very much. Happy holidays. Looking forward to a happy new year, everybody. If there are no other council comments this evening, we will not adjourn. We will go off the record, because we will be, I can't think of the right phrase. Isn't that funny? We will be going into closed session shortly. So we're going to go ahead and take a break here now, and we will adjourn eventually from the closed session. So good night, everybody from the public. We appreciate you, and have a good holiday season. Stay safe. Thank you.